very much the photo of the bonfire or campfire in the background, it's very relevant to the Jewish tradition. There is a Jewish religious holiday called Lag BaOmer, celebrated actually today. And for children in Israel, especially
Wow.
from secular families, it became a holiday of bonfires. So in the early evening of the holiday, which was yesterday evening, you could see all over the country many people light fires, cooked baked potatoes, hot dogs, and marshmallows roasted on stick, and probably telling and sharing many stories. What else can we do around the bonfire?
That's incredible. Guys, I think that deserves for us to light our own bonfire. So let's share our fire with Udi. And thank you so much for joining. And I'll be off the air and be launching your presentation in a bit. Thank you so much. It's all
Thank you.
yours.
So, what is the meaning of trust? In the beginning of 2000, I moved from a long career as a journalist to establish a public relation agency with Ofra Light, who already had a PR agency. One of the first steps uh, was to open a bank account. So we came to Ofra's branch in Tel Aviv. And in the middle of the long process, the banker asked us about the signatory on the account. Would it be one or two signs? We did not speak about it earlier, so Ofra looked at me and at the banker and said, I think that one is okay. And when we finished and left the bank, she said, I really hate dealing with the financial issues of the business. Do you mind taking charge of it? I said, of course, no problem. But later, I was thinking, if I were instead of Ofra, would I do the same with a new business partner? Well, this is the meaning of trust, I think. Hemingway said that the best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. It sounds too simple, but if you think about it more deeply, the real point is that to distrust is a choice. To distrust is a choice. So we should choose to trust. And the conclusion for leaders is if you are looking to create a trusting environment, you must be a trusting leader. After Hemingway's simple definition, you can see here one more complex, but I think very accurate. Dr. Brené Brown, a researcher and storyteller, like to quote Charles Feltman, a senior executive coach, that trust is choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. The idea is that when you trust someone, what you make vulnerable can range from concrete things like a job, a promotion, or particular goal to less tangible things like a belief. Whatever you choose to make vulnerable to the other's action, you do so because you believe their action will support it or at the very least will not harm it. Brown used to talk about 7 elements of trust under the acronym BRAVING: boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. Setting boundaries is making clear what is okay and what is not okay, and why. Reliability means do you reliability means you do what you say. And at work, this means staying aware of your limitation. Accountability means you own your mistake, apologize, and make amends. Vault means you don't share information or experiences that are not yours to share. Integrity means choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and practicing your values. Non-judgment means we can talk about how we feel without judgment. And generosity means extending the most uh, generous interpretation to the words and action of others. This comparison between high trust and low trust company is very important, and the result of this research by Paul Zak are not surprising. Paul Zak is a Harvard professor. He is known for researching the neurological connection between trust, leadership, and organizational performance. His researchers show that the neurochemical oxytocin is released in the brain after a positive interaction with others, including strangers, and it signals that other person appears to be trustworthy. In this recent Harvard Business Research Journal, Zach shared that there is a direct correlation between the amount of oxytocin a person's brain produces and the level of trust they feel in any given situation. He found that oxytocin levels significantly decrease when we feel stress. He also found a direct link between oxytocin levels and empathy, which is empathy, which is essential for creating trust-based relationship and trust-based organization. So the higher the oxytocin, the higher the empathy. The higher the empathy, the deeper the connection. So organizations that create work environment that stimulate oxytocin production among colleagues are expected to have high trust culture. Another critical point is the question, who is more trusted? A recent trust survey by the global public relations firm Edelman found that people now have more trust in their employer than in government and the media. It's based on over 36,000 respondents in 28 countries. You remember that earlier I said that to distrust is a choice. So Edelman found that distrust is the default. 59% in 24 countries said, my tendency is to distrust until I see evidence that something is trustworthy. That's amazing. Anyway, businesses are more trusted than government in 23 of 28 markets. So this presents a significant opportunity for faith-driven business leaders to start or maybe continue using their influence among their employees. And overall, we should remember that the employee experience is a key to trust. If you're asking why there is more trust in business than in government, here is a good example. The story of Marriott and Arnie Sorenson. At the end of 2016, Marriott acquired Starwood Hotels, including all the brands you can see here, and became the world's largest hotel chain. But a year before the pandemic started, Marriott faced major crisis. It began with hacking exposed data of 500 million guests, and a few months later, an announcement that its CEO, Arnie Sorenson, has pancreatic cancer. So what could a CEO of a global company with 175,000 employees say in March 2020? we can agree that trust is very critical in such a situation. So Sorenson made a 6 minutes video message for Marriott's employees around the world. At the beginning, he said his team was concerned about his bald look. He said, my new look is what was expected as a result of my medical treatment. And I feel good, and my team and I are 100% focused on overcoming the crisis we face. For about 5 minutes, he described the complex situation and shared what could be said on Marriott's business in those days. But I chose to share with you only the last minute of this video. Artem, please go.
In 2 weeks, I will mark my 8th anniversary as CEO, a position I accepted on the heels of 2 legends in hospitality. As a leader, I've experienced so many wonderful highs and a good number of challenging lows. I can tell you that I have never had a more difficult moment than this one. There is simply nothing worse than telling highly valued associates, people who are the very heart of this company, that their roles are being impacted by events completely outside of their control. I've never been more determined to see us through than I am at this moment. While it's impossible to know how long this crisis will last, I know we as a global community will come through the other side, and that when we do, our guests will be eager to travel this beautiful world again. When that great day comes, we will be there to welcome them with the warmth and care we are known for the world over. As I close, I encourage you to please take care of yourself, your friends and family, and the community around you. I wish you good health and a sense of optimism. Together, we can and we will overcome this, and we'll thrive once again. Thank you, and be well.
So what do you think about the video? Yes, you can notice that Sorenson got chucked up a few times. He could try making new video shots, but chose not to do so. And sadly, Sorenson passed away in February 2021. Yeah, thank you. So So let's see some signs of lack of trust. After we talked about the importance of trust, and I think that the signs are clear, but withholding opinions or hesitation to ask for help could be a result of shyness. So it's not always signs of lack of trust, and leaders should pay attention to these signs. David Grossman claims in his book, You Can't Not Communicate, that everything we do and say communicates something. So not communicating is not an option. And trust is essential to boosting employee engagement and motivation. When team members trust each other, they communicate openly and honestly, align around common purpose, and take risks. And but it's not only about taking risks. Employees that don't make decision could also be a kind of a red flag for organization. It's important to say that you don't trust until you've been trusted. There is a give and take on both sides, a mutual exchange. Transparency will help you build trust within your organization, but only if it is truly a two-way street. Developing a culture of trust starts with you demonstrating it. For example, you can pick a small task and accept that it may fail. If it fails, ask yourself, was it a lack of clear message, lack of time or resources? Fix what failed and provide a second chance. Also, show your vulnerability. Say it. I don't know. Show your team that you trust them to teach you something. Share a story how you learned something new from teams in the past. All the C's here are true, but I think that three of them are the most important, and I'll talk about them. Communication means how well do you communicate your ideas and decisions? Do you find that people understand what you are trying to convey? What do you do to ensure effective two-way communication? The main tool here is to move from abstract messages to concrete communication. And you are doing that based on stories. That's the best tool. Caring, do you care about your organization and the people who report to you or your colleagues? What do you do specifically to demonstrate that care? Do you listen to your employees and take time to learn more about them? And clarity means helping your team see the big picture, understand the strategy, decision, and changes. We are all inundated by news and opinions through traditional media and social media, so you must acknowledge the unique challenges of this situation and focus on the future. Explaining the why. We like to talk many times about explaining the why. People want to know why do you do something? So how to build a high trust culture? I'm back again to communication, promote communication. As I said, communication is by far the most important component of team collaboration. We know this principle from our private lives. The better we get to know people, the more we trust each other. By stories on values, I mean stories on values like transparency and fairness, for example, and sharing examples based on your experience, or ask others questions like, what experiences have you had that have taught you that you are trustworthy? That will lead them to stories, to find stories. In leadership, we are talking about leading by example, which means to guide others through your behavior instead of your words. Here I'm talking about leading through examples, which means using examples to communicate better. And of course, as I said before, help your team see the big pictures. Feedback and trust are also two-way street. Authentic two-way feedback is building trust in collaborative decision-making. But feedback is also based on trust. So demonstrate that you welcome both positive and negative feedback. It's very important. And remember again, the vulnerability. Effective feedback depends on the ability to reveal vulnerability. In storytelling, we use very often, we like to use different analogies and metaphors. And Analogies and metaphors could be a fantastic communication tool. And I like the example of elephants and the penguins. Do you have a culture that is more like herd of elephants or a waddle of penguins? When a member of a herd or waddle is sick, both elephants and penguins will form a circle around the sick member. But elephants and penguins behave differently. Elephants form a circle facing outwards around the sick elephant to protect and defend the elephant. On the other hand, penguins form a circle facing inward around a sick penguin, and they peck them to death, actually. Think about the culture you have in your team or your organization regarding performance. When a member of the team can't do their job or make a mistake, are you a herd of elephants and help them, or you are reacting like a waddle of penguins? Think about it. Now a few words about remote working, which became very popular because of the COVID effect. Well, dog walker is one of the jobs that has only a remote version, but many jobs can be done both at workplace and at home. According to a February 2022 Gallup study of over 12,000 US employees, about 4 in 10 workers are currently either hybrid, working remotely part of the time, or working entirely from home. And regardless of their current situation, nearly 7 in 10 workers say they would prefer to be fully remote or hybrid. Working remotely impacts trust. We tend to go first to those we already know, and it's easier to ask someone a question right in front of you than take the time to put it in an email or a Slack message. I found that the hybrid working during the pandemic is leading many organizations to the conclusion that they should find more value in productivity metrics and behaviors than in busyness metrics. So the main point here is more trust and less monitoring. For example, ask yourself or your colleagues, what did you find that you were more, when did you find that you were more productive from home? Or when was the last time you received recognition or praise for doing good job from home? That can lead you or lead them to a story on the value of trusting remote working. Well, it's a nice way to close with George MacDonald, a Scottish author and poet. What does it mean? You may not always trust the person you love, but you can always love the person you trust. So to be trusted is a greater compliment than being loved.